Alrighty, hey guys, so we're coming to you from down here in the South Island of New Zealand, and I thought that it's about time we talk about this bike. So obviously I've been lucky enough to be riding this bike for nearly 6 months now, and I saw the prototype just on a year ago. I thought today that it'd be quite cool to just do a pretty basic review of this bike. The things we'll look at is all the things that have probably changed since the last Shiv, how I set it up, how I like to race on it, how I use the nutrition, the fuel cells, and then we'll have a little look into what I understand of the aerodynamics and the reasoning for the movements on these bikes. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I was on a Skype call here roughly a year ago when I saw the prototype of this bike. The boys were sort of showing me over some of the features before it went into production. I think first impressions, it can be a little bit stunning. I won't say that this bike, to me, when I saw it on camera to start, was a little bit like, whoa, that's a touch different. But I think the more I've ridden it and got to know the features and I guess understand the reasoning why they've done certain things on this bike has probably given me a much greater understanding and I guess appreciation for this bike. Obviously the biggest thing I can talk about is I guess the riding performance, how it handles, and I guess the nutrition and ability to fuel myself over the Ironman. For me, a really interesting aspect of this bike was the front end, okay? Tri-fork, much like you got on your downhill bike with the 3 setup system and through your headset. Now, the reasoning with these big foiling front ends, okay, the point was to try and get that wind flow working in the right direction for you. And also now with the ability to go to disc brakes, they've also been able to put through axles. Now, for me, I believe that that's probably one of the biggest changes on these bikes. To me, it's like riding the new Venge. Having through axles makes it a really stiff, responsive kind of ride. For me, that's how I like to ride. I like to accelerate up hills. I like to stand up. I like to feel that when I put the power into the pedals, I can feel that power coming out the other side. And so that, to me, has changed the dynamic of this bike compared to the older Shiv. The front end, in the way of this system working in here, really cool headset, okay, so it's just a main through bolt with an expander in it, and seems to be a really functional system and works fantastic. The nose cone, okay, so pretty simple system. Going back to using this, so you just squeeze the front end and clip, okay, and the nose cone comes off. What that allows you to do is get into the front connections, okay, so in here you've got your Di2 junction, you've got your hydraulic brake hoses coming through, and then we'll look into the nutrition hydration system in a minute, but that's how you feed the hydration system through. The bar setup, okay, they've done a few different things with it. Things like in the sides here, okay, got removable rubbers, okay, so these are just covers, and how they work is you just pop the front end off and then slide the cover out of the way. That gives you access to a main bolt, okay. By loosening that main bolt, you can adjust the angles of the sidebars, but you can also collapse them completely for travel. So from taking your bike width from say 450, 500, your handlebar width, fold it down to 200 straight away, put it straight in your bike bag. Really simple system, super adjustable for lots of different people. If you want an upright riding position, obviously you can have them up at like 10 degrees, or you can drop them down. Different spaces to allow you to do that. Another part obviously is with the bar setup. So I think it's a really smooth system. I think having this stacker here, it's a very, very solid stacking system. 2 main bolts that go through, and again, you can change that stack height depended on your, obviously, flexibility and how low you want to be. Yeah, for me, the stack system has worked really well and super simple. Now, I've done a spreader plate, okay, for your pads. So again, it allows a lot of movement width-wise. So you know, you can go from anywhere having your handlebar arms completely wide enough to have a full bottle in between, or like I do, kind of somewhere in the middle. Or if you sort of want to get that really, really tight aero space, then you know, you can really bring your forearms in close together. I think it's a simple system, it's quite clean, and for me, again, it works really well. I know that there's a lot of people who are really into having their bar ends up and believe that that's the way of aerodynamics and that's how it works, which you can adjust by putting spacers in on the pads, okay, and allow to get that little bit of tilt, like maybe say Lucy Charles has done, and then also have some bars that kick up. Myself, I think when I'm riding in a crosswind, it's pretty simple that if I go from having my bars like I do, quite flat, I feel like I've got a lot more control. If I bring them up like this, then all of a sudden, to me, I'm not being able to integrate that core. I'm not going to be able to control the bike as well in a crosswind. So I like to keep it quite flat. I also think that that surface of the wind, whether it's been broken like that or that, it's still going to be coming into you. So, you know, it might be a small difference in aerodynamics, but for me, the riding, the comfort, and just the responsiveness to the crosswinds is something that I would prefer, especially in the likes of Kona. Moving down the bike, again, this system in here, so pretty simple fuel cell, really easily removable, and obviously you can put your gels in there. Can hold about 8 gels. I use high 5s, but in an Ironman course, then I'll use a fuel cell that clips in, that slides in here and holds sort of up to sort of 9-10 gels, and swap it out. The junction box and battery is up under here, okay, so to charge you just clip in underneath, and then reaching down into the frame is where you keep your spares, okay, so I've just got a spare tube down there, CO2 canister. It stays in there nice and tight and is always there, which is kind of the beauty of it. Okay, so I guess probably the next very interesting feature is moving towards the back. Now, there's no getting past this thing, okay? I mean, aesthetically, it's interesting, but I think practically, it's awesome. Let's say this has got 1.5 litres of fluid in it, threads through a fixed hose, comes up through the junction box and out and into your mouthpiece just here. Now, it means that you've got water, fluid, all the time. Now, how I like to race Ironman is that, I guess in the likes of Kona this year, I had this full to the brim, 1.5 litres, with a really, really strong electrolyte mix. Now that's my base for the day, okay? After that, I grabbed bottles from the aid stations. Now what I did was I put a bottle cage on here, and then that was always carrying one spare cold bottle that I'd swap out through pretty much every drink station as we went. This bottle cage comes off race day, and for me, that's sort of the key to this bike, okay? I think they really, really tried to think, how can we make this bike the most functional and aero while it's carrying all your equipment, all your fluid, and all your nutrition on at the same time. Now, people might say that, let's look at this thing and say if it got hit by a crosswind, that it's going to deflect the wind and push you over. Now, maybe I thought that to start, but I guess the more you think about it is, say you're traveling at 40k an hour forward, there's a crosswind coming in from the side, okay, that wind's going to start moving, plus all your legs, your hips and that are here, and they're breaking that wind as it goes. So the reality of a crosswind hitting you here on this surface isn't really much of an issue, and it's not something that I noticed. In fact, the big thing I notice now is that this system, if it is a really nice day and the roads are smooth, then you can actually feel the wind moving past it and flowing past it. So compared to having two big bottles sitting up here, or having two bottles on your frame, or rolling how I used to have it as a bottle on the handlebars, the issue I think with the bottle and the weight on the handlebars is that as soon as you try and move the bike around, or if you get a crosswind and it gets thrown, that fluid moves around on the bars, and it affects the handling of the bike. Where the fluid back here is in isolated cells, and it means that it can't slop, it can't move around, and it's actually really, really solid, so you don't get that slop side to side as you pedal. It just sits there in its, you know, inch wide cell. I think probably just looking at the last few little things that have come up is, I guess the big change here is this rear chainstay. Again, that's something that a few bike companies have done. Pretty simple aerodynamics, you know, you close down this gap, there's less wind surface flowing in that direction compared to being up here and catching all that wind, okay? So really it's just dropping that. This is a pretty beautiful little engineered section to me. I think it looks absolutely amazing. Allows them the space to put the brake caliper on the other side for the disc, and also gives a lot of strength and stiffness in the rear end of the bike. That's about it, to be honest. You know, I think for me, this bike is probably pretty much spot on. I'd look at maybe changing one or two, giving me one or two abilities with nutrition, but I think that's something that Specialized are definitely working on at the moment. And I think that, yeah, this bike has made some really, really big leaps and bounds. I think there's the old saying of let's not reinvent the wheel, and let's not go too far down the line of like maybe the closed over front wheel, or say the beam bike or anything like that. They've actually kept to what they know works really well, and then gone and try and adapt some of the systems to work even better for the athlete and for the bike. So again, feel free to, you know, throw any questions out there, any opinions out there. I look forward to probably in a month's time seeing everyone, the first 500 limited editions coming out, and people getting to ride them for themselves. So cheers.